What's going on, everybody? It's Ron Brown, LMT, the People's Fitness Professional. My co-host, something's going on with his background. I don't know. So we're talking with Dr. Paul Dyer. Welcome to the podcast. You haven't been on in a while. However, he's one of the first people we've interviewed in the beginning. We're bringing him back on. We want to talk about some things in regards to PTSD and his experiences in the military. I thought this would be a great idea to kind of introduce the public to who Dr. Paul Dyer is, to kind of give you more depth about who he is and his upbringing, so that when he's on, you could better understand, what his focus. His focus is emotional. He's an emotional scientist, right? Um, with a lot of education in this field. So, what we want to start off with is your upbringing in the military. So, introduce yourself to the people, and let's go into you know your experience in the military.
Oh man, thank you, my brother. It's nice to see you. I'm glad you're healthy and peace and grand rising to you, brother. And
Thank you.
I know Mikey Fever be on here soon.
Yeah.
So, if people can just, they can always check on all my background stuff and with the martial arts and the education stuff, with the military stuff. 15 years. I was a special operator. Um, um, I was on teams. I was in Delta, and went through the Rangers, went through all the way up to group, and so you know the, the training. I loved it. I loved it just I loved everything I did. I loved uh, all the things I did. I love serving my country. I love, and it wasn't so much I did. It's almost tough to say because it's we when you get into the military, you get in for whatever reason you hit basic training. That stuff goes out the window when you meet your brothers. And I know I can name two of my brothers, Mickey and Haymaker, who I went through. Oh, we went through jump school, aerosol. We went through it all together.
It was the shirt,
And
guy. Sorry. I had it was aqua.
uh,
The aqua, you know, got caught in the background. Sorry about that.
and I went through in the early '80s. So, well, in the '80s. So, we were still fighting our drill sergeants when I went in. So, um, it was a lot different than it was. My first combat was chasing Noriega out of Panama and things like that. So, um, man,
Wait a
that's
minute. Let's
'88.
let's unpack that. We can't just say that. We gotta unpack that a little bit. So now you helped chase Noriega out of Panama.
Yeah, that was our first mission. It was a clusterfuck, to be really exactly. I mean, there was so many military people in Panama that we were shooting each other half the time, military groups, because the intel was wrong. Um, the situation was a mess. The locals were for him because he was their Robin Hood, um, and it was just bad. It was just bad, and I was so green, yeah. And you're talking about heart racing and just trying to do what we got to do and all that stuff. But
Hmm.
uh,
Okay.
jumping 30 mile an hour deck out of that, hitting that, you jumping out and hitting the deck at a jumping in 30 mile an hour winds is not fun. You're going
Mm.
sideways.
Wow.
So it, but from that point to other points and other situations, it takes a toll on you emotionally. So that's how I got into the emotional science, because I wanted to figure out who I was. So I come from emotional science from a different avenue, not from academia. I came from understanding my personal self. Growing up in New York, Boogie Down, and then understanding the things I went through as a kid, and the sexual abuse, the gang violence. My best friend got his chest blown out when he was 13, and I was standing right next to him. So, I mean, there's all these things that if you have children. I know I have 9 children. When you have children, you don't think of your child being on a corner hanging out. What are you talking about? You're hanging out with who? What time? You better get your ass in the house. You're doing that stuff, and then your best friend gets shot. Right? Those things shouldn't be happening to your children, but it did for whatever reason. Had nothing to do with the home life. Had nothing to do with none of that. It was just my decisions, my bad decisions, and the decisions I made. Right? And it being compounded. By turning myself into a weapon, and a good weapon. And I'm proud of that, but it does take a toll.
Now, you say you turn yourself into a weapon in the military, right? In the military.
Yeah, but like I said, I've been studying martial arts since I was a child. So I did the whole, karate, kung fu, and kempo was a big thing, and for me, and but then I fine tuned it into what you call actionable. It wasn't just it wasn't just compliance. You'll see different things where people comply when they're training. Our training was to finish. I don't have time to be rolling around with you. I don't have time to be grappling with you. I don't have time to be hugging up on you. I don't have time to. I don't. I got it. Hit you and keep on moving.
Seek and destroy.
Yeah, where they say if a fight takes more than 10 seconds, that's 5 seconds too long.
Yeah.
That's just because we got things to do. We got things to do. There's a mission to accomplish, and the other people you're coming in contact with, they're also skilled. So and they want to get home too. So you definitely have to learn a different mindset. You definitely have to, and then the people you're training with, playing sports and lifting weights and running and jumping. Military strong. When we say military strong, it's a whole different strong. That's all I gotta say. It's a whole different strong. It's a whole different strong.
Okay, I want to unpack
mental.
Yeah, it's mental. I want to unpack that. So now, military strong. Now, you mentioned a few things. You mentioned this. This is what made me think about this. You're very skilled, and then you have your enemies who are very. Hold on 1 second. That are very skilled. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. So you're very skilled. Your enemy's very skilled. You want to get home. They want to get home. That's a different kind of energy when you're in combat. That's a different kind of energy. It's not like a fight where no one's thinking that they're going to really die.
No.
So you get
if
up.
anything, it is kill or be killed.
Right.
Yeah.
it is not because it is not be, it is literally not because you're better. It is because you don't want to die,
Mm.
and you don't want your partner to die. You don't want your team to die. You don't want your group to die. You don't want no one to die. You don't want to carry no one home. You don't want to go to no casket. You don't want to see the wives, the family. When you're in a team, it is your family. It's not
All
it's
for
not
one.
your it is your family. This is it. This is it. You know. Um. So no, we're all getting back on that plane. We're getting back on that troop. Yeah, we're getting on.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
You
just
may
like
be bloody, you may be hurt, you may be bleeding, you may
But
be
you're
all
going home.
scratched up, but you're going home, right?
Yeah.
right now, I want to unpack that mindset. Two people, both skilled, both want to go home. What kind of training does the military give you to change, to turn that switch on that all human beings have, but the military knows how to get access to it and bring it out of you?
You know, that's probably the one thing they do exceptionally well. You may want to call it brainwashing or whatever you want to do. Um, um, the new military, I can't speak for it. I have nothing to do with it. Um, when you get into certain teams, certain places, it gets worked in. All that back on the block um, gets washed out. And if it doesn't get washed out, it doesn't get washed out like you put it in a washing machine. It gets washed out like you put it through a scrubbing board.
Wow.
And they don't scrub it, you scrub it. Like you have to scrub it clean. So there are these different mind melding ways of them having you do the work, but you do the scrubbing.
Okay. Now,
Wow.
does it have anything to do with running long distances, pushing your brain and body, past a certain point?
Yeah, but then it's the words, man. It's like thinking back at it, like yeah, you could run until you throw up and pass out, but it's certain words. It's certain
Yeah.
words to certain people at a certain time, and that's what instructors have. It not everyone can be an instructor. I know my instructors to this day. I know them by name, know them by. I could probably see they could be 150 years old, and I'd be like, that is one of my instructors. Like I could because it's something about what they said to me at a certain time
That evoke
that
emotions.
no that they ingrained. They changed a grain in me, not
Mm.
invoke. They changed a grain and a grade in my brain mapping, and
Mm.
and it needed to be changed. Otherwise, at the end of it, you're not coming home. So when I got in, I had Vietnam instructors. I had people that was in Vietnam that stayed over. Like maybe they were at the tail end of Vietnam. They got in the 70s and things like that.
Mm.
And or I had first sergeants and sergeant majors that were in Vietnam. So they had that combat mindset, right? They had that no bullshit. So they had that, right? We had officers, you know, colonels and commanders who were just in in the dirt, right? Officers maybe were coming out of schools, their instructors were in Vietnam. So we had that military combative mindset that was being pushed. Now, there have been, which is fine, peace has a lull to it, and which is good. Not everyone's going to go to combat in the military. And I think that's a blessing. I don't think people should have to go to combat. It's not a good thing to have to go through. But it does changes a person's perspective on things. It does changes the reaction time, and who you are as a person.
And that's
But
key.
yeah, that is key. Yeah,
That's key. That's key when it comes to like combat, confrontation in general, like reaction time.
Yeah.
How did they train that? Like you said, they didn't train that only with words, right?
no, I was talking to someone earlier today. There is practice. There is training, and then there's action. Most people can practice. Many people can practice. Some people can train. Not many people are put into action. When you are able to put all those three together in a repetitive thing, then you're training muscle memory, right? But then what about mental memory? Right? So now you have 5 components to it. So then you say, okay, then you have conditioning, you have conditioning, you have practice, you have training, you have action, you have muscle, you have mental. All that's got to come together in combat. That only gets that tool with that sword only gets sharpened in combat.
That's true.
There's many times people have great conditioning, right? Man, they practice a lot and they train a lot and they read all the things, all the great books, and try to get their mind right, and they try to put themselves in some actionable things to keep it all work together, and then they get into combat and they fall apart.
That's true.
Okay, you're not going to know that, and no one's ever going to know that. You're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to be this. I can't wait to get this. You're full of shit. You're going to be scared when bullets starts coming back at you. And training, it's a safety mechanism. They can't hit. There's a point where when they're shooting bullets at you, it's a safety measure, right? Unless you're training with certain people. I'm not going to mention other people's different groups' names, where we don't give a fuck and we will shoot as close to you. If you come out of line, that hit is on you. A lot of people die in accidents. A lot of people die in training. So, and it's an accident, but maybe you should have listened better, right? When they say keep your head down, oh, they won't hit you. Your head down means head down. I don't know how else to tell you. Don't put your head up, and you want it. So, but in combat, they're not trying to not miss you close. They're trying to hit you.
Take your head off.
They're trying to take your head off. Just like people watch MMA. I don't even, what's the difference between MMA and a street fight? There's a guy in a ring with a whistle.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. There's a guy in the ring with a whistle.
It's controlled environment.
Pull that in an alley, and your stuff may not work. Probably won't work. Especially if the guy is a street fighter and is street conditioned.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
Mm-hmm. Now, I wanted to talk.
People get into combat and duck their heads.
Now, when it comes to like action, so you're saying that the only way you can basically get your mind primed, if you will, for combat is to actually be in combat.
No, because you can't just keep going out and seeking that type of danger, but you get better at it the more you go.
Hey, doctor, it sounds like what you're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like form follows function. Like if you're in that constant form and you follow along, because it's like how Bruce Lee was when he trained. Everywhere he went, he always got into some combat. He felt that he was challenged. If somebody tapped your foot a certain way, he's like, "All right, let's go, let's do it.
Let's do this." Yeah, even back in the early martial arts days, yeah, absolutely. There, full contact fighting. It was, now people have, safety measures. Which, again, I'm not. This has nothing to do with safety measures. People need to be safe. I agree with people being, but getting punched in. When people wear boxing gloves are for who? Is it for the boxer, or is it for the boxer you're boxing, or for you, the boxer? It's for both, boxing. Really.
Yeah, for both. Yeah.
It's for you, right? But in martial arts, it's bare knuckles. You train your wrist so you can strengthen your wrist, strengthen your knuckles. You turn your hand into a weapon, right? I don't know many good martial artists who hit heavy bags with gloves on. Now, the reason why you may wear a wrap is because leather will tear up your hands.
Yes.
And if you hit it slowly, like we were trained to do in older ways, you build up that conditioning and you leathering up those hands, and you won't rip that skin. We used to hit the bricks, Makar boards, just with our bare hands, and we go put that salve on. The next day we hit it, and we put that salve on, and it's sore. Your things are sore, but after a while, your hands don't look like. I mean, they're fine, and you can still hit it, and you won't rip that skin. That takes training. That takes time. That just takes time.
Right.
Now, you can't just go out and kick trees.
Right. Now, I want to go into. So can you give us like details of the training of the things that you guys did for conditioning, for combat, for hand-to-hand combat, and also weapons training?
But before you go any further, Ron, let me ask Doc a question. Which branch of the military were you in?
I'm Army.
Army.
Special force.
But when you get up, you end up training with all the branches, because it starts to get into a small hole. You start to train with the Navy people, the Marine people, the Air Force people. I mean, you just really, you fit us all into a minivan in comparison. You just because you're all after the same thing, perfection and precision, right? You shoot with them. You may have some razz between each other and things like that, but yeah, you end up training with so many of the same people and having a good time with them, because they say 1% of the population join the military. ever. And then going into certain groups, it's less than that. And that's just because of the attrition rate. I mean, you may start out with in a class before selections and 120 something people, and then finish with 32.
Mm-hmm.
And it has nothing to do injuries. You can't do nothing to my injuries. Sprained ankles, you can't continue with a sprained ankle, hurt back, brokenness. That cuts a lot of people out. The grading process.
Okay, so I want to go.
It just keeps you from going through.
Okay, now I just want to go into the conditioning. How many miles are you guys running? And how is it? Like, are you running with a backpack? How heavy is the backpack? What kind of clothing are you wearing?
The answer is yes. Is the clothing? I don't know.
You're not running.
I don't remember
running sneakers.
No. We didn't. I don't again. I don't know what they do now, but we ran in boots, and I don't remember changing clothes. That's the other thing. You don't have time to change clothes. You think you want to get off the wet clothes, put on dry clothes. You may get a chance to change your socks. That's important. Dry socks is probably your best friend ever. Is dry socks.
I heard about that. Prevent some infections and certain things. Your feet tearing.
You start learning the trick of the trade. Change your socks. But 10 miles is nothing. 20 miles, 30 miles. 10-mile morning, 10-mile afternoon. So it's just that's running, and then you got a 50-mile ruck. I mean, that's a walk. And then your rucksack is probably about 50 pounds, 80 pounds in training. Wow. And it starts building up from there to carry a full load, which is about just over 120 pounds.
Wow.
And this is on a 50-mile walk, you said?
Yeah.
Army tough, man.
That's
just military tough, and then that's just you're going on, and then you have elevation changes. Then you can walk in Florida, and you go to Colorado and you walk in Colorado, and then it's a whole different
terrain
beast,
climate.
No, it's just the altitude.
Oh yeah,
it's the altitude.
Wow.
So now after with the training, so now you got the training. Okay, now you guys doing calisthenics, of course, push-ups, pull-ups, right? Weight training, right? What is that like?
I don't know. Weight training is a bad idea. Weight training is when you're out of
the military.
No, I would say weight training is really when you're out of schools. When you're out of different training schools, you could weight train if you want. I personally didn't, because you want to relax. You want to rest. You definitely you want to swim. You may want to play a pickup game or something like that, or ride your bike. You get into things like that. It's more cardiovascular. I mean, weight training. There's all these people who could lift and do all these things that would join, pre-selection and things like that. They don't make it. That's a lot of muscle to carry. a lot of muscle to swim, a lot of muscle to walk, a lot of muscle to run. They just don't make it.
So you have to be lean. The ideal body weight is lean.
it
Mm.
it's if your ideal body weight will come to you after you make it through.
Right.
That's kind of like how it works out. It's not like I don't know if you could say my idea body is going to be this. It's like the training builds your idea body. I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't know if you could come up and say like, man, my idea body has to be this. You know what I mean? Like your idea body becomes it. See, that's
Right.
what I mean. You couldn't come in with a preconceived notion like, if you just do this, this, and this, you'll have it. If you come in with this mindset, you'll get it. The answer is just no. Because even if you thought you were ready, you're gonna get there and be like, what the? Like what? Because again, it goes back to the washing machine, the scrubbing board. All that stuff gets scrubbed out. All what you thought, that's out.
Mhm.
Scrubbed out.
Okay. Okay. Now I want to
Like
go in.
I can run 60 miles. Okay. How fast can you run 60 miles? Well, I normally run it at a 9-minute mile pace. Now they want you to run it at a 7-minute mile pace. Well, I didn't know that.
You're gonna make it one way or the other.
The people who can run it at a 7-minute mile pace, they want you to run it at a 5-minute mile pace. Well, I didn't know that. I mean, like, so where does this end? It doesn't.
Wait, so they want you to get lower and lower, like 9 minutes,
There's
5 minutes.
there's the point where can you go? There's running groups that they just want you to get to. They're gonna push you to get to. If you have a 5-minute mile group, and those guys I used to call them the deer hounds. Man, you're talking about running with a group. We're running 10 miles, 15 miles, and you have the 5-minute mile group. And they always have the instructors or the people who run right at the 5-minute mile pace. So if you get behind them, you're running less than a 5-minute mile. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that means you fall back in the 6-minute mile group,
Right.
and so on and so on. But there is no 8-minute mile group. Like there is none of that. So you're just not, if you can't make it, because our cutoff is this. And if you're behind this instructor, you're not making it. Like if you can't make it in front of this instructor by this couple of days, you're not going to make it.
Okay. So the conditioning is a lot of cardio. Now, when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, what's taught most in the military? Is it boxing? Is it? I know now is MMA. Like that.
Israeli judo, something like that.
It's a lot of jujitsu, a lot of ground, because you remember you're working. They do boxing. They do, because it's a lot of ground, right? Work, because with equipment on, eventually you're gonna hit the ground. I don't know too many people on when you have your gear on. You're gonna be doing a lot of high kicks and things like that, right?
Right.
So you're gonna judo throws. You're gonna be doing a lot of throws, takedowns, but takedowns with a purpose. Takedowns, get it done, get up, which is where judo has always been. Judo takedowns were always about takedowns if you're going to be down, finish them down. If you can't finish them, Olympic judo isn't that, but real judo is take down, finish, and be done. Um, but yeah, it's not roll around on that.
Mhm. So is it more
Yeah.
like Miyamaru Jiu-Jitsu?
Yes.
Okay. Miyamaru is efficient. Is in, out. There's not a lot of rolling on the ground and all of that.
Because there isn't time to roll. I mean, I don't know how much you're going to keep rolling on. You're wasting a lot of energy.
Just strike and go, right? Strike them, looking for the opening.
Yeah, I mean,
and strike.
because again, you're when we're talking about combatives, right? You're thinking of, so you have stuff on, you have weapon on, you have a knife on. So I don't know how you got to the point where you're down, but you're most likely going to pull a knife. They have a knife, you have a knife. And so you got to stick them in proper spots where they bleed out, right? Or you get to another piece of a sidearm where you shoot them so you can get up and finish it. Let's look at it this way. Like when you watch the John Wick movies, he's not rolling around on the ground with him, right? He gets down on the ground with him, he spins him, turns him, shoots him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking for his next target.
Right.
That's it.
Same concept. Okay. Now, as far as weapons are concerned, what were the main weapons you guys had?
The one that does the job.
So was it AK-47, M16?
So you'll always have your long gun, and you always have your short gun, and then you always have your blade. Now it'll be up to you how many side guns you'll have and how many blades you carry, and your long gun, because you're gonna have. I mean, your rifle. I mean, you're carrying about 1,500 rounds just on your rifle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're carrying. And then you may have 60, 90 pistol rounds.
Yeah.
I mean, you're pretty stacked. If you're carrying 1,500, you're stacked up.
That's another factor that slows you down as well, right?
Right. Right. And if you're just going in and out, that means you're only carrying about maybe 1,000 rounds. And you're still carrying about 60 handgun rounds. That's not a lot of rounds to be fooling around.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a combative. You can't be exchanging gunfire with a lot of people with 1,000 rounds.
Right. Right. Now, as far as combat is concerned, right? Like, let's say, I don't know how you get to the destination. Are you on a helicopter? Do you
It
jump out?
depends on who you are. It depends on who you are.
So you're special.
Yeah, it depends. You can go from ship to helicopter, plane to jump.
And then when you get to your destination, you down on the ground.
Right. Then it's feet. Or you meet with someone to pick up vehicles. Like you could have people that meet you on the ground with, depends on where you are in the country. People pick you up, and that's friendlies with vehicles and to get you where you need to go, and
what was the last
get
country
you need to do. And
sorry,
Mike, I was going to go to the first country.
Oh yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
What was the first country you visited?
I well, um, no, I guess South America.
Hmm.
What?
Now, when you get there, let's say your first mission, right? This was your first mission, so you don't have the experience in combat like that. So, what's running through your mind on that first mission?
You look to the people that's been there, done that. You look to your leaders. You look to the people that you ride that hip and you
Okay,
listen.
that's what keeps you alive.
Yeah, listen. Don't be a hero. Don't be instinctual.
Don't
You
be a
listen.
hero. Just listen. Now, when you're in combat, I'm assuming bullets are flying. You know, uh, there's a lot of that. There's a lot to take into consideration. Even animals, right? You got to look at all of that.
Uh yeah. In South America, it's the monkeys.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's,
So you
it's
yeah.
the
got to look out for the
monkeys.
monkeys.
They're like monkeys or snakes.
Oh wow. Wow.
So there's a lot,
Yeah,
a lot to think about.
yeah.
Wildlife.
Because the monkeys sound like people, especially at night, and they move at night. Yeah, monkeys.
Hmm.
So a lot of collateral damage in the process. A lot of monkeys.
No, there's a lot of.
False
It's
flags.
like asking someone. It's like asking someone from Iowa to walk through Harlem at midnight.
Gotcha.
A white Caucasian middle-aged family to walk through Harlem at midnight back in the 80s.
Oh no.
Straight wow.
Right, because you can walk through Harlem now and get a Starbucks and you're cool. So, I mean,
Yeah.
right, but back in the 80s, yeah. Down Lennox or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not happening.
No.
It's just not. I don't,
Hmm.
you know, or take some wild out. I'm talking hooping ass basketball player from Wisconsin and say, "Let me drop you into Rucker
Yeah.
and go take court."
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, right.
So now, as far as now, I don't know if you want to talk about this, and you don't have to. So, like, from what I know, this is just I just know a little, just research. Now, let's say, okay, people I know, right? They say their first kill or whatever, they throw up. They're throwing up. Now, I don't
Hmm.
know if you remember that experience or if you want to talk about that, but like the first time you've actually did that, what did you experience?
No, I didn't. I didn't throw up. It was too busy.
To process it, right?
Yeah, it was too busy.
Was it more like a job that you knew you had to take care handle anyway?
Right, right.
Yeah.
and that's the category you put it in. What I do remember is back in Garrison and the crying. Because when we got back, this is what I do remember. We used to get lit when we got back.
Okay.
We used to get so drunk.
So you numb it.
I mean, we used to lock ourselves in the barracks and just. It was just like. I remember crying. I don't know if it's just crying drunk, crying from alcohol. I just remember that. And that was just something, I did. Even when I got married, I couldn't go home to my wife. I used to spend like 3-4 days. I used to say I want to wash the dirt off. Like I couldn't go see my wife. Like I couldn't see her. She knew where I was. She knew when I got back and all that stuff. But for like 3-4 days.
A lot of psychological.
I didn't see my kids. Yeah, I didn't.
Now you grappling with PTSD. What is PTSD exactly?
Post-traumatic stress disorder. Something that you're grappling with after the fact. You're remembering something so traumatic. You're remembering something that happened that causes a trauma disconnect with your personal, emotional self that you want to be. Or who you think you are, or who you think you would like to be. That's why anyone can have PTSD with something that has happened to them that they didn't mean to cause happen, or something that was done to them that they didn't account for doing.
It's real.
It's real for everyone. I mean, I just don't know. I don't like it being used as a punchline, though, because so many people have had things happen to them that they didn't mean for it to happen, and it has thrown them off a cycle of healthy lifestyle. But then again, it's difficult because I would hate for it to be used as a crutch. But how do you know it's used as a crutch, or is it just something that is being
loosely tossed around? A term loosely tossed around.
Yeah, but it can't. But like if like I remember a therapist telling me that it's hard to put me into PTSD because I acknowledge it and I'm able to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because some people with PTSD don't acknowledge it and they cause destructive behaviors.
That's a fact.
Right, so they're in destructive lifestyles. Right, they drink. They're doing something that's harming their life, and when they think back on something, it's hard for them to reflect on it, so they continue to do the destructive behavior.
That's real, Doc.
So, and I told the therapist, and they know who I am and what we do, and they said it's difficult for us with you, Paul, because you've done so much work that you could talk about it. But I said, that, I mean, it doesn't mean my pain isn't this. And then they said, no, it has nothing to do with your your pain and what you go through isn't as real as others. It's just that your acknowledgement of your pain takes you out of the categories of what we consider to be PTSD. And I said, now that's sad. So I'm actually working with other people to, other uh, doctors, therapists, because for them to catch a person with PTSD, they have to catch them in an action of destructive behaviors that's causing destruction of their life, right? Whether it be, promiscuity, drugs, whatever, whatever is causing the dismantling of their existence. And then when you talk to them, you find out that they've been trying to hide the fact that this happened to them. That's textbook PTSD, right? You uncover that they've been molested. That's, or they whatever, right? Whatever. And this is why they do so many harmful things to their personal lives, unconsciously.
Yeah, trying to erase it, drink it away, numb it with drugs.
Drink it away, gamble it away, work it away, work too much.
Evading reality.
Or try to make way too much money, right? And not spend time with family, right? Because they spend time with their family, they realize they don't believe they'd be a good father because their father put cigarette butts out on them. You know what I mean? So there's a connection there. You know what I mean? I don't think I could ever be a good father, but I want to be a father, so I work so much. But my excuse is I'm providing for my family, but I work 90-hour weeks. But look what I provided for them, but I'm never around with them to give them emotional support because I don't know if I can provide that because what my dad did to me. But that doesn't become uncovered until you talk with them. You see what I mean?
Yeah. So can we say it's safe to say that society has PTSD? Majority of people walking around today have PTSD.
Yeah. Well, they actually say there's like 13 million people in the United States. Yeah. I would say, and that's just we're not even talking about the military.
That's real. That's real. I think a lot of black men suffer from that. They don't speak on that. That's why they have the highest suicide rate. Because I'm gonna keep it real funky in this podcast. They said I had PTSD growing up. I was never touched on anything, but I had a violent streak. I had to learn to cope with that. Because I didn't know how to express myself. I always felt like I was being attacked growing up, so I would lash out with just violence to get people up off me, and that became a normal thing for me after a while.
The one thing, as far as the military aspect is, and here's the struggle with it. When you talk about using the scrub board to scrub out all things you think you are to be put into a situation to develop who they need you to be, and afterwards, how do you regain who you think you would want to be?
That makes sense. I don't believe people are born to be violent.
I don't. No. I don't think people are born to be violent, but I could definitely turn you into violent. I actually think I'm a very kind person.
Yeah.
But I do have a switch.
Motion detected at the driveway.
I have a switch that I know. I recognize where that switch is. And I actually know when that switch can be turned on is if my heart rate gets pumping a little bit too fast and I become very hyperactive and very
Mm-hmm.
hypersensitive.
Mm-hmm.
I could be set off and be like, okay, why did Paul kill up half the mall? You know what I mean? Like what tipped him off? I don't know. So that's the danger of it. But I have to see that line way before that happens.
I
That
know
keeps me safe.
Motion detected at the front door.
that's crazy. Not you, but it's crazy how the mind, like, it could, like, the slightest thing could just have a human being, like, before we call write people off. I believe every human being has that breaking point where they just can't take it no more, and they,
Yeah, but you don't
it's
want
curtain.
ex-military. You don't want ex-military people who have had training even better or more than I have saying they've had enough.
That's the part right there. Hmm.
Yeah, so and there are a lot of them who just shut social systems and societies off because I was telling Ron off air, you know, being in the hospital, going through my own mental hospitalizations and things like that. And what gets me there is the hate, the unkindness that people have for each other in this world. That sets me off. I mean, it's simple. It is people talking unkindly to each other, not holding the door open for each other. The people who think their snide remarks are comical. That hurts me. That actually puts me into an uncomfortable light in my head
Mm-hmm.
because it's about power over system. I don't agree with the power over system. I don't care how you think it's. I don't. That to me is that's where I'm very nervous about being set off, and I rather cry and wilter and seek out help and go into the mental hospital because that does set me off.
But I
And
commend you for that.
no medication can ever dull my senses to that. And people are like, oh, people are just unkind. No, I am not. I can't do that. I think that's why I write much as I do about the science of emotional thinking and emotional science is because we can develop a choice if you are consciously enough to say I did not know I was doing that.
But I commend you for that. You find different ways, different avenues to process that, to put that, that uneasiness and to deal with it, to be able to function. Like, even I commend Brother Ron with the military stuff. I mean, pardon me, the martial arts. Because when somebody takes time to train and do that, it's something that I like it like that, those Street Fighter movies, like Ken and Ryu. Like, how Ryu's story is always he's looking for the next battle because he's fighting himself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Hmm.
he trains hard until he meet his match. And like in reality, he say, I'm fighting myself because I'm learning how to tame that beast within me. Because I'm afraid that one day I'm gonna unleash it and it's gonna be all. I think a lot of people in the world don't know how to process that. A lot of dudes in the street, and I'm like, not, don't want to sound cliche, but I'm all for that, especially with mental health. Therapeutic therapy is the best. Is a good thing. I think we all need it. A lot of black men need. People in general need therapy, but I say black men need therapy. You see the behaviors out there. They don't know how to process things, and this is why groups like Nation of Gods on Earth and Nation of Islam and other fraternities, they try to teach men how to be better men, the
Yeah.
science of the mind, the liberal arts, and everything else. So yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
No. I mean, you right, but again, they have to reach out, because if a person doesn't reach out, I don't know what you're thinking inside your home or inside why you riding yourself. I don't know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
But if you don't reach out, you're just going to remain lost and angry or upset. Right? So they have to reach out.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true. Wow.
Well, I want to close off with and come up with a part 2 of this, because I want to ask more questions. But in closing, do you want to say anything? Any questions or any thoughts before we close out?
You know, I don't. There is no senseless. There is no glorifying what military people do in the belief of the country. There's no glory in it. We do it because we volunteered to protect, to serve, foreign and domestic. What hurts me personally the most is when we find out that we were manipulated into doing the things. I'm not talking about mind manipulated. I'm talking about saying we're doing this for a positive reason, and we realize that it was just to teach someone a lesson.
Steve, that has to be part of part 2, man.
You know, because we don't go into for the politics. That's not what we do. That's not even on our preview. But it doesn't mean we don't read on the aftermath either. And it doesn't mean we won't do it again, because we go for our brothers. We go because we're on deck. We get the call. We get the notice. We got you're up. All right. that's just. We could complain about this until sun up and sun down with the cigars. But when we get the call, it's all right. You're up.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's not like, no, you know what? This is about this. It's about that. It's political this. We're not going. No, because there are people who are in a situation that needs protecting. And they have nothing to do.
Gotcha. Well, in closing, thank you, Dr. Paul Dyer, for coming up. We want you back next week for part 2 of this, if you have the time. But if not, we spoke about a schedule. We'll continue to keep building on this podcast, and this is the introduction to everyone. For Paul Dyer, the introduction of Paul Dyer to the community, to the NYP community. So you got, every time you see his face, it's about to get deep. Mm-hmm. So peace to everybody. Thank you for viewing today's podcast or listening on Spotify, iTunes, and other platforms. We will see you again soon.
Comment, share, like, subscribe.
Peace.
Peace.